Using facial recognition software and other verification means, the opposition New Patriotic Party says it has been able to match over 76,000 persons on Togolese voters register who have been inserted into Ghana's voters register, and this could have been done by criminal means. The critical question for the NPP is, how did this happen?
The question, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is how these scanned pictures got into the EC voters register. How did they find themselves into the register? Who scanned them into the register? This could only have been done by people with the necessary security permissions to do so. The evidence is therefore incontrovertible that Ghana's voters register has been compromised. It is not a document we can rely on for free, fair, and transparent elections in Ghana.
So how do other political players see the need for a new voters register on the back of this new evidence? Are calls for a new voters register gaining more credibility? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. Now, calls for a new voters register have been given a new boost by the New Patriotic Party, which has come out with data through cross-verification suggesting some 76,000 Togolese nationals have been manually inserted into Ghana's voters register. Vice presidential candidate of the NPP, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has been going through the results of the party's cross-verification and raising key questions about the data. Let's watch.
Over the years, there have been persistent rumors that people are coming from across the border in Togo, in Burkina Faso, in Cote d'Ivoire to register and vote in Ghanaian elections. Persistent rumors. And you keep hearing them election after election. The curious case of the increased NHIS special registrations in the Brong-Ahafo and Volta regions, both border regions, coupled with the massive increase in voter registrations in some border constituencies between 2008 and 2012, resulted in us initiating investigative work to ascertain whether in fact citizens of Togo, Burkina Faso, and Cote d'Ivoire do register to vote in Ghanaian elections. This was not an easy exercise. In this regard, our investigative team started trying to obtain the voters' registers across all of the bordering countries. We obtained the Togo voters register, and this was publicly available in Togo. This is a sample of the voters register in Togo, right? So we obtained the Togo voters register to begin the investigations.
Right, interesting revelations there. Let's hear what some of the other political parties say. We have on the line now Ivor Greenstreet, who is the CPP General Secretary. Good evening, Mr. Greenstreet.
Good evening.
So, does this come to you as a surprise? I mean, the NPP is saying that the issue of bloating of the voters register has been with us for some time, but here they are with, well, what appears to be credible evidence of 76,000 people who are in the Togolese voters register, whose names and identities have been inserted into Ghana's register. Does this surprise you?
Well, I think, first of all, let us ask ourselves, what register are they talking about? You know, NPP went to the Supreme Court over the last election. They did not complain about the register then. They complained about the processes, and they were ready to accept that same register to have their own candidate declared as president of Ghana. It was that same register which, although they elected minority MPs in terms of not getting as many as the NDC MPs, had 123,000 more aggregate votes than the NDC. Is it the register before this recent exercise that the EC has carried out, the limited registration exercise, which removed almost 156,000 people from the register? So, yes, we are concerned about ensuring that we have a credible, transparent register that we can all rely on. But in trying to implement a new register, there's a number of significant issues that we would be confronted with. Number one, in terms of the capacity of the EC. And number two, in terms of the general problems which face the register, and that is unlawful entry. Unlawful entry, therefore, implying aliens coming onto the register, or minors coming onto the register, or multiple registrations.
Right.
With this biometric system, multiple registrations are less likely. But if we are carrying out a new register, are we going to be able to prevent aliens or minors coming onto the register? So we are happy that the EC have decided to schedule an IPAC meeting for this Friday. And I would wish that the MPP would come to that table along with all the other stakeholders,
right,
ready to compromise, ready to look at the problems that we all know exist, and ready to find a way forward that we can all agree on.
Right, Mr. Greenstreet.
But not to adopt a posture of either it is my way or no other way.
Right, so Mr. Greenstreet,
we all have to come together as stakeholders and agree.
If I get from the point you're making, you share the view that we need a new voters register. That's your party's position, correct?
Well, no, we share the view that we need to discuss whether a new voters register is workable or not, whether it is possible. Okay? Because we know there are problems with this register. But having a new voters register has a whole series of other implications that we need to analyze fully. And I believe that these are best analyzed not on radio programs, but in the comfort of the EC offices, where there are experts, where there are people who've been engaged in this, and then we come to a conclusion which is in the best interest of Ghana and the
Right. Mr. Greenstreet, how do you hold? We're joined on the other telephone line by Dr. Agri Darko, who is a political analyst. Dr. Agri Darko, we're grateful you could join us at such a short notice. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So,
how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. The revelations the MPP brought out today are worrying. Some political analysts say for 76,000 people's identities, police identities, to be replicated in Ghana's voters register. It's a big concern. Now, Ivor Greenstreet, who is on the telephone line, is raising questions about what particular voters register the MPP is referring to, for which these duplicates were detected. Do you, from where you stand, feel, one, that we have a problem with our voters register, and perhaps if you could tell us the right approach you feel both political parties should adopt in order to come out with this right solution, you can share with us?
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and a good evening to Ghanaians and the listeners. Well, we have all accepted that democracy should be the only game in town. And once that has been made, then it is important that we engage in a lot of discourse that is underpinned by information, underpinned by knowledge and so on. We are building a knowledge-based society fundamentally, and democracy usually is strengthened by some of these discussions. Of course, we say that quoting from Plato, we must be interested in people who really would know what the rules of the game are, and who are very much interested in how best they can interrogate the issues, and at the end of the day, build consensus to resolve the problems that confront society. Now, if you look at democracy, basically, we have always argued that elections are very critical. They are ubiquitous in any democracy. Even though we have undemocratic elections, there's no way you can have a democracy without elections. And one of the critical defining ingredients in any election is a voters register. And I was telling
right,
in organized press conferences, there's no way we win elections in this country. The real issue will be even the voters register. If you look at the population of Ghana, let's look at it critically and see whether indeed the voters register we have is a credible one. You understand? The processes are such that, you see, the electoral processes are such that no matter how hard you try, some people may go around it. But critically, what you look out for is how you minimize, people who will exploit the loopholes to their advantage. Human beings, and I will continue I'm a student of Machiavelli, so I'll continue to quote him, that look, human beings are not angels on earth. Right?
Yeah.
And therefore, you would not expect that we are angels. And his argument is that the very day we become angels, we will not be fit for this earth. That is why we need to continue to build into even the governance system a set of checks and balances to check the possible abuse.
Right.
So I would not be surprised at all that there will be possible abuse. If during the last Supreme Court case, I mean, this voters register came up for questioning. The chairman of EC at the time indicated that he wasn't. Even though I think there are minors or so on the register, and then the voters register is not perfect and so on. But the key question you want to ask is that is whose fault? As in the popular Ghanaian parlance, who caused them? I tell you that individuals, you and I, political key stakeholders are very much interested
Dr. Agre, I'll have you pause briefly. I still have Ivor Green Street on the line. You've raised 2 points, which I want to put to him so that he can leave us and we'll continue with the discussion. So, Mr. Greenstreet, Dr. Agridako is more like also suggesting that there is need for checks and balances to ensure that we have a clean slate. I don't know whether a clean slate in terms of electoral register is possible. What do you think as CPP should be the approach way forward? The MPP has held a press conference. It has conducted its own investigations and come out with data which clearly suggests that there might be foreigners captured in our voters register. Beyond that, what should we be doing?
Well, I'm glad about the choice of your words. Clearly suggests that there might be. And so, let us take a look at there might be evidence and have a discussion about it. And that might be evidence might become factual. There might be actual evidence. I don't think the EC are going to reject that. And I think we're all ready to sit down with the EC who have institutional expertise and knowledge and have a discussion with them. And I believe that this is the right time to do this. I appreciate the points that my colleague on the phone has made. And I'm happy that the process is now beginning. And I believe that it will enable the benefits of the kind of register that we all want to ensure that our elections are credible and transparent come 2016.
Right. Thank you very much. Ivor Greenstreet, General Secretary of the Convention People's Party, CPP. But earlier, Dr. Bawumia has been making recommendations on the way forward. Let's hear a couple of the points and then we'll continue with our discussions.
We recommend that a new voters register should be created to replace the overbloated 2012 register. We suggest that this register should be created no later than June 2016. Secondly, the new register should result in the issue of permanent voter cards, the PVCs, as was done in Nigeria in the recent election. The PVCs should have embedded in them the biometric details of everybody. Thirdly, the period of registration for the new register should be a maximum of 2 weeks. And that new registration should take place simultaneously across all polling stations. Across all polling stations. In fact, if the EC says they don't have equipment to do so, they can go and borrow the equipment from Nigeria. It's lying idle and bring them and we'll do the registration. Fourthly, this new register that is compiled should also be audited and by internationally reputable firms. We should audit it once it's done. Fifthly, copies of the new voters register should be provided to political parties in both electronic CSV file or PDF formats. The new register should be sorted alphabetically by last name and gender, and it should clearly delineate voters registered overseas by country and the basis for the registration.
Right, Dr. Agredako, I'll still have you hold. I'm joined on the other telephone line by Mr. Albert Kofi Ahin, who is the national coordinator of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO. Good evening, Mr. Ahin.
Good evening, my brother. And good evening to your listeners as well.
Thank you very much for your time on today's big story. Now, the issue at hand is a new voters register. The MPP is making recommendations and asking that we need a new voters register latest July of 2016. They want individual Ghanaians to have a permanent voter ID card. Among a couple of recommendations, Dr. Barima has made 11 recommendations way forward. Do you think that the approach of one, conducting private investigations into voters registers of Togo, Ivory Coast, and contrasting that with Ghana's, and then going out to fish, more like data mining and finding out identities or persons that have been replicated or inserted in the Ghana voters register? Do you feel the approach by the MPP is right? And then way forward, what should we do as a country if we want to get it right?
Yeah, first of all, let me say good evening to your listeners and say that in compiling the voters register, it is not only the Electoral Commission that does it. It is done together with the stakeholders. And by the stakeholders, I mean the political parties being a major stakeholder.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And then the citizenry also taking part. So, also remember that it is the good of all Ghanaians. It is good for everybody that you get the full participation of the parties in compiling the voters register. Because when the register is good, the end product is that we have good election.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
But my worry is this, that why did these things all happen? When, for example, we have all the agents, all the stakeholders present during registration, it tells you that there's something wrong, if it is actually true with the system. And what I'm saying is that the EC has the mandate to compile the voters register. The EC, the Constitution guarantees its independence in the performance of its function. The EC is not being ordered by anybody to, for example, perform any function. You see? And again, the EC can at any time alter the means by which registration can be done. And for that matter, I'm saying that, for example, we did registration in 2012, and if there's a problem with the register, it could be replaced maybe in 2013, 2014, whatever. That is, if the EC decides and with the stakeholders, the agenda should be done. You see, so with this problem that has arisen, we as CODEO will say that it is in the interest of all Ghanaians that the issue is resolved, because we have a very major election ahead of us in 2016. You see, so it is incumbent on the EC and the stakeholders to sit down and have an amicable solution to these problems that have been presented by the political parties or by the NPP, if you like. Otherwise, we're going to go into 2016 with a backload of issues and problems about the register.
Right.
So the way forward is that the EC, together with the stakeholders, should, through IPAC or through some means of resolving the issue, come together and see how best this problem could be resolved.
Mr. Kofi, I'll hold you brief. I'll hold you. Mr. Kofi, I'll hold you briefly. You made a point which I need to get Dr. Agredako, who has been on the line for a while now. Doc, we apologize for holding you for long, so we can
well,
get the
it's a service to the nation.
Yeah,
so cool.
Quickly, I mean, there have been questions of dual citizenship, which is critical. There could be Ghanaians who are also Togolese. Does the law of Ghana allow for dual citizens to, for example, vote in Togo and vote in Ghana as well?
I think it should. Of course, you know, if you look at the dual citizenship, for me is a very critical thing. It's priceless, and that is why one of the key duties, or if you like, rights of any citizen will be the right to vote. And that is why serious nations do not joke with this whole concept of franchise, the right to vote and to be voted for. And I consider it as a priceless right, because that is one of the key defining, ingredient of citizenship. Okay, so but you can still have a dual citizenship and have the right to vote in wherever you find yourself. If you look at our laws on dual citizenship, there are a number of things you cannot do. For instance, and because these issues really will border on loyalty. Okay, Machiavelli said that when you craft for yourself a citizen's army, one of the things that would define that citizen's army, for instance, would be loyalty to the state. So people will be fighting out there. So if you go to the military area, you see that these are men and women who are fighting to defend Ghana, sea, land, even at their own peril. That's critical. So one of the key prohibitions will be that you cannot be a service commander, any of the service commanders. You can't. Air Force, the Navy, whatever. You can't. Right. You cannot be an ambassador. You cannot be a minister of state. But apart from some of these things.
Right, Dr. Agredako, the suggestion will be that it's very possible that the people who are captured in the voters register in Togo and captured in Ghana could be, well, I think we're getting...
These are people who are fabricated, that the election results that are coming from the field, they have to pass through another organization where they are tampered with before they land in the electoral commission. They went to court and this claim was disproved. When they are talking about features, what are you talking about?
Right, so Ms. Ahin, sorry, you came in. Hello.
Your position will be what?
Right.
Let us go to the round table. Let them bring their evidence and let us consider it in a proper environment. But you don't dismiss this type of press conferences. You don't use press conferences to determine the citizenship of people.
Right.
Well, but you've already dismissed it, so you've already taken a position.
Ms. Ahin, we're grateful.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Agredako.
Yes.
Ms. Ahin was reacting to what you said, and so I think...
What did I say?
No, we were having a general discussion, so he was reacting to my, I think my question of dual citizenship.
Okay, I was actually looking at... the fact that you said whether people would do our citizenship.
That's right.
You understand, and maybe the lawyers can explain. But what I was trying to give you is that there are certain specifics that the law, the issue of dual citizenship or people who do our citizenship cannot do. And I was giving you certain areas. For instance, the person cannot be a service commander. He cannot be an ambassador. He cannot be a minister. But it didn't say that the person cannot vote. I haven't seen that. That's what I was trying to explain. You understand?
Right, Dr. Agredako, we're grateful for your time on today's Big
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you. And we still have Albert Kofi Ahin on the line. Ms. Ahin, you were making a point to buttress the...
We have the obligation to come out to say the truth. But this is what happened. And that is why we think that this is best for the nation. So that is one of the main reasons why we want to defend and stand up for the truth. The second reason is that the recompilation they are looking for is going to open opportunities for the register to have to be loaded with minors. If you are lucky to have the register, which originally was loaded with minors, which nobody could do anything about it in cleaning. And because of the passage of cap, those minors whose names are on the register have come up there and they are qualified to register now. Why do we go to open the opportunity for new minors to be included?
So Mr. Aim, the point you're making is that there won't be any need for a new voters register as the register stands now. Right. 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 Thanks very much, Mr. Albert Kofi Ahin, for your time. We're now joined on the other line by Mr. Sam George. We have very short time to go, but Mr. Sam George, good evening.
Good evening to you.
I'm sorry we got to you pretty late, but quickly your short comments on the MPP coming out with what they refer to as data, which suggests that over 76,000 Togolese nationals have their names, identities, and photographs inserted into Ghana's voters register. Does this present itself as a credible grounds to get a new voters register?
Well, let me say good evening to your listeners and your viewers. I am not in a position to speak for the Electoral Commission. However, my own comments and observations is we're promised a bombshell by the NPP. What we heard today was a hot air balloon that was very deflated. The facts and points they seem to make are at best laughable, because they allege that 76,000 Togolese and people of other nationalities have voted in the Ghanaian register and have voted. You want to ask a very basic question. What shows that those are not 76,000 plus Ghanaians who are voting in other countries by virtue of the fact that they work and reside in those countries? And so I think that on face value, you cannot just accept the claims of the NPP and take them as sacrosanct. Again, you want to question the source of the data. Dr. Baumia, who led the presentation, is on record to have questioned the authenticity of data churned out by the Ghana Statistical Service. I find it extremely hypocritical that Dr. Baumia would base his entire claims of this bloating of our register on data and statistics from the same Ghana Statistical Service. I think that is political ventriloquism. At this point in time, what we need to be clear about in our minds is that if there are issues with our register, IPAC and the political parties can't sit down and look at how to audit the register. It is a continuous process.
Right.
But we cannot continue this cycle of the MPP crying wolf every time we're going into an election. Stephen, remember in 2008, they complained the register was bloated. The Ghanaian taxpayer funded a new voters register. In 2012, they claimed that register that they cried for in 2008 was flawed. We gave them a new register. In 2016, they are crying for a new register. Can't they see that the problem is not the register but their flag bearer? That's the question some people are asking. And so I think that this whole claim of a flawed register is a flawed claim in itself. And I think that the EC should continue to engage with political parties for us to do a proper audit of the existing register and make it better than it was in 2012.
Mr. George, we are grateful for your time.
Thank you for your time.
On today's big story. Sam George is doesn't speak for the NDC, but it's a government communicator. My name is Stephen Enti, and we're grateful that you could join us on today's big story. We'll be right back with Joy News Interactive.